We are 5 years away from entering the 21st century. Humankind stands on the edge.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for clicking on the video. So, the top Sega Saturn games revealed that this console had a lot more to offer than you might think. Although it is true that Sega's 5th generation system faced tough competition from the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64, there's an amazing lineup of games waiting for those who know where to look. Specifically, many of those standout Sega Saturn titles were never released outside of Japan. 775 out of the 1028 officially released games, in fact. This list may rank them accordingly, but players in that region had access to some of the finest RPGs that never made it to the US, along with fantastic arcade adaptations of popular fighting games, a great selection of adventure titles, and thrilling shoot-'em-ups. I'm going to try my best to be fair to this list, but also be fair to the amount of games that we could originally play on this side of the world. You know, back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, eBay prices on retro games hadn't spiked yet. I was lucky enough to pick up a Japanese Saturn with about a dozen games for less than 40 bucks. Now, as always, I'm going to ask you to comment down below. What are your favorite Saturn games and the reasons why? Remember guys, we all have different preferences and it's simply impossible to mention every single Saturn game. Whether you're feeling nostalgic or you're just starting to build your own collection, check out my list of the 20 best Sega Saturn games. Let's go.
And every inch a Sega.
Wow. What a mansion!
Starting off our list, number 20, Resident Evil. Now, for some reason, my friends keep trying to convince me that this is a bad version, and I wholeheartedly disagree. Now, we all know RE1 was originally released for the PS1. Resident Evil set the standard for survival horror games. You take on the roles of STARS agents Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield as you navigate the zombie-filled Spencer Mansion, tackling puzzles, managing limited resources, and facing a variety of spine-chilling jump scares. In 1997, Resident Evil made its way to the Sega Saturn, bringing along fresh content like a battle mode, new enemies, and alternate costumes. The eerie atmosphere and wonderfully cheesy dialogue remain unchanged, resulting in a strong port that stands out as the scariest game on the Saturn, at least in my opinion. Number 19, Tomb Raider. Now, even though Lara Croft found much more success on the Sony PlayStation, she actually first appeared on Sega Saturn. While it might seem a bit outdated now, the ambition and creativity of Core Design's games are undeniable. The tombs you explore are vast and often feel like intricate puzzles, challenging you to figure out how to navigate their dangers or to grab the items that seem just out of reach. Plus, having a strong female lead added to the game's impressive achievements, making Croft just as iconic in the gaming world as Link or Master Chief. Come on now guys, temper your expectations. It's not going to be just a JRPG and shoot 'em up list. Fairness to the North American players. We can do that list another time. Number 18, Galactic Attack. While the Saturn was loaded with fantastic shooters in Japan, only a handful made it to the Western shores. One that did this is Taito's Galactic Attack. I love saying that. This game stands out as one of the finest shooters available on the console. It goes by several names such as Layer Storm or Gunlock depending on your region. What makes Galactic Attack so enjoyable are its top-notch shooting mechanics, stunning pixel art, and an energetic soundtrack created by Taito's own in-house band. Similar to the equally impressive Suk-Yu Gu Rentai the following 2 years later, a powerful lock-on laser is the key to Galactic Attack's appeal, and mastering it is essential to defeating the game's numerous formidable bosses. Now, going the Japanese route is usually easier on the wallet, but this is a great game to have in the collection.
Ready.
Number 17, Mega Man X4. This may be another late port, but at least Capcom was committed to bringing the Blue Bomber to Sega's console. This installment is the first in the series to hit the 32-bit era, and it's also the first time you can play the entire campaign as Zero. I wasn't a fan of the last sequel, but X4 definitely fixes a lot of those issues. The level designs have improved significantly, and the new graphic engine showcases some impressive set pieces and massive boss characters. Mega Man X4 stands out as one of the best games on the Sega Saturn, thanks to its incredible level designs. It's an awesome 2D action platformer. To some people, this is considered the best Mega Man game overall, and I'm ready to see some comments saying that it should be much higher. Number 16, Enemy Zero. In one of the most epic moments in video game history, the reveal of this game saw the Sony PlayStation logo transition into the Sega Saturn logo during a Sony presentation. Enemy Zero is a first-person survival horror game where you take on the role of a survivor trapped on a ship infested with aliens. These aliens are invisible, they're killing off your crewmates, and they're after you. This definitely puts you at a serious disadvantage. You do have a proximity indicator that alerts you when they're getting close to you, giving you a chance to strike and take them down. Getting up close and personal with these creatures can be quite intense and creepy, especially when you're trying to pull the trigger. Without a doubt, this is one of the top 20 games for the Sega Saturn. Number 15, Daytona USA. When Daytona launched alongside Sega's console, there was a lot riding on it, but unfortunately it fell short of the lofty expectations. The rushed release resulted in a significant drop in frame rate and choppy animations. If you were hoping for an exact arcade port, this isn't it. On the bright side though, the core gameplay and driving mechanics from the arcade version were preserved, which helped players overlook its visual shortcomings. Interestingly, an updated version called Champion Circuit Edition came out in 1996. While it addressed some graphical problems and introduced more cars, the handling fell off from the original game and arcade experience. Now, don't get me wrong, this game is still awesome and does play really well. It's enjoyable. When you think Sega Saturn games, chances are Daytona USA is one of the first that comes to mind. Number 14, Sega Rally Championship. Sega's adaptation of its popular arcade game can be described as nothing short of amazing. While it doesn't perfectly replicate the arcade experience, missing features like forced feedback and rearview mirrors, and showing some visual downgrades, it still delivers a remarkably faithful version that captures all the key elements of the original, including its fantastic physics and realistic handling. Sure, it has fewer tracks compared to other arcade racers from that era, but each track is so meticulously crafted that you'll be finding yourself exploring every bit of dirt and mud just to achieve the best lap times. The car also feels distinctly different from the other ones, and you'll even have the option to customize these cars, which wasn't possible in the arcade version. While other racing games tried to rival Sega Rally, none managed to take its crown. Number 13, Saturn Bomberman. To put it simply, Saturn Bomberman is the ultimate Bomberman game ever created. Yeah, I said it. A big reason for this is that it supported up to 10 players simultaneously with a unique multiplayer adapter. You can even grab an adapter featuring Bomberman's face. In addition to the chaotic multiplayer action, it boasted an unexpectedly enjoyable single-player mode, stunning visuals, and a wealth of stages and power-ups. While many Bomberman games are entertaining, Saturn Bomberman truly excelled in nearly every category. No other Bomberman title released since has managed to surpass it.
What about Super Bomberman Online?
Oh, shut up. Number 12, Super Puzzle Fighter 2. Super Puzzle Fighter is not only visually appealing, but also a blast to play. It features those adorable chibi versions of characters from both Street Fighter and Darkstalkers, throwing them into a unique battle where the focus is on smashing gems instead of actually fighting. At its heart, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 is a puzzle game where you match colored gems and use a corresponding shiny orb to break them apart. The more jewels you break, the more damage you inflict on your opponents. While it may sound straightforward, it's actually quite challenging, with each character offering a different gameplay and strategy. Plus, its charming yet effective design kept the gameplay engaging and addictive. Question: growing up, did you pronounce his name as Ryu or Ryu? Number 11, Virtua Fighter 2. Another title that jumps to mind when you're thinking of the Saturn. It's hard to say, but Virtua Fighter 1 really struggled when it first launched on the Sega Saturn. The initial port was just too straightforward, making it look quite blocky and basic compared to the other games at the time. Virtua Fighter 2 is where Sega really showcased the console's capabilities. This game not only boasts the highest resolution of its era, but it also runs smoothly and looks stunning. I think I even like this style over the Tekken series. The fighting style feels more authentic, drawing directly from real fighting techniques. The gameplay is surprisingly deep, featuring counters, throws, and the classic 3-button setup that we have all come to know and love. The one thing that you're gonna need to get used to is the physics, as they can feel a bit floaty. Still, this game remains one of the absolute best on the Sega Saturn. Number 10, Nights into Dreams. Even though Sonic Team's games on the Saturn weren't the greatest, they still managed to create this one amazing score attack game. You can have a good time playing Nights with a regular Saturn controller, but to really experience what this game has to offer, you should be using Sega's analog-based 3D controller. The controller lets you perform incredible acrobatic moves that highlight Knight's unique style of movement, giving you a better shot at racking up those score-boosting combos, or links, and taking on the game's many visually stunning bosses. It's a captivating game made even better by its cheerful soundtrack and impressive graphics.
No, Mr. Loch Ness Monster. I'm very upset with your list. Nights into Dreams at number 10, but Mega Man X4 at 17. I call bullshit.
Well, like that old saying goes, you can't please everyone all the time. Number 9, Burning Rangers. The Saturn's commercial downfall can be linked to several factors. A major reason for its failure was the absence of a true Sonic the Hedgehog game. Sonic Team struggled to bring the iconic character into the 3D realm, which meant Sega couldn't leverage its most recognizable mascot to promote the console. However, Sonic Team did make contributions in other areas. One notable title was Burning Rangers, released toward the end of the Saturn's run. This game was one of Sonic Team's original projects for the system, and its energetic soundtrack clearly reflects the studio's style. The gameplay is rather unique, putting you in the role of a firefighter in a futuristic utopia. While the 3D graphics may not hold up well today, the game has earned a dedicated and loyal fanbase over the years. Number 8, Shining Force 3. Shining Force 3 may not have the smoothest graphics, but everything else about it truly stands out. The soundtrack is fantastic, and while it continues the series' legacy of open worlds, it's presented as a much richer storyline than earlier games. Additionally, Shining Force 3 builds on its predecessors by introducing more complex mechanics. Many missions come with unique challenges, such as rescuing fleeing refugees or surviving with just one character for a set number of turns. Overall, Shining Force 3 is one of Camelot Software's greatest stories and ranks among the top tactical RPGs ever created. Just make sure you don't lose any of your discs. Number 7, Guardian Heroes. When 2D sprite games and side-scrolling fighters were losing their appeal, Treasure decided to go back to the well one more time and created one of the best games in the genre. Guardian Heroes blends RPG elements with exciting brawling action, featuring a captivating story, a cast of charming characters, devious villains, and various choices that lead to multiple endings. The game is anchored by a powerful combat system and 5 distinct characters, each with their own unique playstyle. Although the original Saturn version can be pricey in certain areas, there is an upgraded version available for the Xbox 360. Can you believe the 360 is turning 20 this year? Seriously, Google it. Number 6, Grandia. When Grandia was released, it generated a lot of excitement and was Game Art's most ambitious project at the time. The standout feature is its battle system, which is considered one of the best of any RPG across all generations. Players need to plan their attacks strategically to interrupt their enemies and time their healing just before taking heavy damage. While there's a bit of a learning curve, the game introduces mechanics in a friendly and fun way. Sadly, this version never made it to the West, so most players got to know it through the PS1 port. Fortunately though, there's now a fan translation available, allowing gamers to enjoy the Sega Saturn's biggest RPG as it was intended. Despite the language difference, this remains the top version of the original to play, even today. Number 5, Street Fighter Alpha 3. It was a toss-up between this and Street Fighter Alpha 2 to make the list, since Street Fighter Alpha 2 is easier to find and much cheaper. However, this is about the best Saturn games ever, and not too many 2D fighters on the system can compete with Capcom's incredible brawler. Interestingly, Capcom's port came out a year after it hit the PlayStation, and even longer behind the Dreamcast version. Like other Capcom fighters, Street Fighter Alpha 3, also known as Street Fighter 03 in the UK, makes great use of the 4MB cartridge to include extra frames of animation and sprites, resulting in a nearly arcade-perfect experience. It also featured 6 additional characters compared to the arcade version, along with an improved dramatic battle mode and a reverse dramatic battle mode, making this the ultimate home version of the Capcom classic. Number 4, Dragon Force. Dragon Force is hands down one of the best strategy RPGs ever made, and I don't say that lightly. It's truly one of a kind, and even heavyweights in the genre tip their hat to this gem. You start off by choosing a country and its ruler in the enchanted world of Legendara. From there, you gradually conquer the continent by moving your pieces across the map to capture castles and battle your foes. The combat is semi-real-time, with your units and the enemies acting on their own while you give commands. It's super dynamic and incredibly addictive. There are countless ways to experience this campaign, which can be overwhelming in all the best ways. Honestly, few games can match this one, and it's definitely a top 5 on anyone's Sega Saturn game list. Number 3, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Now, any other day of the week, this could be my number 1. And it's funny how many Saturn fans missed out on this incredible crossover, since it never officially launched in the West. That's a real bummer because it's an amazing port of the arcade classic, nearly perfect thanks to the Saturn's 4MB RAM cartridge. Plus, it's considered one of the best Marvel games ever. With its huge sprites, eye-catching special moves, and a super fun tag team system, X-Men vs. Street Fighter lets you form dream teams you never knew you wanted, like Ryu and Wolverine, or Rogue and Dalsim, or Akuma and Cyclops, and then you get to take on challengers. Surprisingly, it hasn't seen a re-release, as Capcom has opted to focus on the more financially successful Marvel vs. Capcom series instead. Question time again, guys. Go ahead, write another comment or edit your last one. Which was your go-to tag team for this game? I always main Charlie, with Ryu or Wolverine taking up the second spot. So many arcade tournament memories back in the 90s at my local arcade. Mine was called Amusement 222. Anyone remember that one? Number 2, Radiant Silvergun. Treasure's adaptation of its celebrated arcade game comes with several enhancements for the Sega Saturn. These include a more developed storyline, new bosses, and a simplified weapon system compared to what the arcade version had. This relies on the 3 buttons that are needed to be pressed in various combinations. What sets this version of Radiant Silvergun apart is that all of your power-ups are available right from the start, turning it into a strategic challenge to determine the best moments to use them for optimal impact. Radiant Silvergun is well known for its impressive boss battles, an outstanding soundtrack, and that hefty price tag. This game stands out as one of the best top-down shooters on a console filled with amazing shoot-'em-ups. Number 1, Panzer Dragoon Saga. The last installment of Team Andromeda's Saturn trilogy underwent a stunning transformation, much like the hefty price tag that it now carries. Instead of sticking to the on-rail shooter style of the first 2 games that we're all familiar with, Team Andromeda spread its wings, allowing players to explore vast open worlds and visit various villages and locations as the new hero, Edge. No, not that one. The combat system has seen a significant revamp, blending turn-based and real-based action for an incredible experience. Panzer Dragoon Saga features full voice acting and full motion video or FMV cutscenes. Now, think about this. Final Fantasy series never did that until Final Fantasy X, which was released 3 years later. With a massive scoping story that spans 4 CDs, it has become a standout title for the Saturn and is a must-play for everyone. And that's my list of the 20 best Sega Saturn video games. And if you're playing at home, you're gonna notice again, like I mentioned, that there was no Sonic titles on this list. Now, if you made it this far, you're awesome. And if you're interested in videos like this, you're probably around my age, so get up and go stretch your back. Don't forget to comment your favorite Sega Saturn games or suggest the next console that you want me to cover. Thanks again, I really do appreciate you clicking and liking this video. Until next week guys, take care.